Okay, here is our last part of our chapter 4 review if you need it. So we are on number 10 right now, and we're going to go through and try to take a look at this graph and give our answers that are needed. So it says the graph shows Jaya's savings account. So here's our time in weeks and our balance of money. So it says use T for time and B for balance in her account. Identify the independent and dependent variables and use them to write an equation that represents the situation. Okay, so there's 3 points to this, okay? The first one is we have to identify the independent and dependent variables. So our independent and our dependent variables. Okay, so which one depends on the other one? Does our time in weeks depend on how much money we have, or does how much money she has depend on the time in weeks? And so I always find dependent first. And so the how much money she has depends on how long she saves it. So the balance is the dependent and the time is the independent. Another way to kind of memorize this is the X values are always going to be the independent. So if it shows you that the X, what it is, that's always the independent. And the Y values, the ones going this way, are always going to be the dependent. So if you're shown the graph or told that, that's automatic. Okay, now write an equation. Again, we need to find our rate here. And we need to find our initial value to be able to do this. So on a graph, to find the rate, remember, we need to figure out as I go over one square right here, would be my 1, how far up did I go? So as I traveled over 1, I went only up 1. So the rate is 1. This is in dollars, right? $1 per 1 week. Our initial value, remember, is where does this start on the graph here? So how much money did Jaya start with? And it starts at $3 is what she must have started with. So then we write our equation of y equals, all right, our rate 1x plus our initial value. Now, here is the challenge that on the test, notice in the question, it said use T for time and B for balance. So instead of X and Y, they're going to change it to T and B, right? So T is time, which was our X values, right? So I'm going to use a T here. And then B is our balance or our Y values. So they're going to use a B here. So this is what it would look like on the test. Actually, or it probably looks like this. B equals T plus 3. And the reason that they probably wouldn't put the 1 is because 1 times anything is itself. So this is something that maybe we ought to double check and really study that. Okay, last one. What is the value of x in the equation? X minus 3/4 equals 5 1/6. Okay, we're back with the fractions, and this is very similar to number 1. Notice you do not have common denominators, and also you have a mixed number in there. So first things first, let's change that mixed number to an improper fraction. So we're going to do 6 times 5 is 30, plus 1 more is 31. So this is really 31 over 6. X minus 3/4 equals 31 over 6. Well, then we need to do our inverse here. So the inverse of minus 3/4 is to add it to both sides. Okay, we do not have a like denominator, so we need to make one. The challenge here is really 4 and 6. You can't change a 4 into a 6. You're going to have to change both denominators. So the least common denominator of 4 and 6 is actually 12. So I'm going to change this to 12ths for both of them. All right, so the question is, how do I get 6 to be 12? I have to multiply by 2. So that means I would have to multiply this one by 2. So this becomes 61 over 12. How do I get 4 to be 12? I have to multiply this by 3. So I would have to multiply the top by 3. 3 times 3 is 9. And now I can add those up. So I get x equals 61 plus 9 is 70 over 12, and then we change it back to our mixed number. So how many times does 12 fit nicely into 70 would be 5, right? And then so 5 times 12 is actually 60. And so what would be left would be 10 twelfths. And you're like, yay, I'm done. It's still not going to be the final answer though, because this needs to get simplified one more time. So what can I divide both 10 and 12 by? I can divide them both by 2 to simplify it. So I end up with 5 and 5/6 as my final answer. Okay, hopefully this is helpful. If you have questions, make sure you contact Mr. Ramirez or myself, and we will do our best to help you out before taking this test. Good luck.